In the mid-19th century, hundreds of thousands of people packed their lives into wooden wagons and walked across the wild expanse of the North American continent. To understand how this massive migration actually worked on the ground, we have to look at the deeply personal choices of individuals. Andrew Lee Allen was a man who possessed absolutely no logical reason to abandon a perfect life. The American West was certainly settled by fortune seekers hunting for gold and land, yet it was also carved out by individuals driven by ideological forces so strong they willingly walked away from guaranteed success to face a dangerous unknown. Andrew built his prosperity the hard way. Orphaned at age 9, he learned the blacksmithing trade, struck out at 14, and survived a dangerous stint protecting American vessels on the Canadian border during the War of 1812. By his early 30s, he had achieved a textbook American dream. He owned 60 acres of rich farming land in New York, complete with a massive sugar maple grove, a custom-built home, a beautiful wife named Clarinda, and 7 children. A chance encounter derailed all of it. While Andrew was out one day, 2 Mormon missionaries knocked on Clarinda's door and left behind a few pieces of religious literature. Andrew read the religious pamphlets over supper. He was so intrigued that a few days later he saddled a mule and rode 80 miles straight to hear the missionaries preach in person. He asked for baptism the very next day. That single decision triggered a complete reversal of his life. He immediately liquidated his prosperous New York estate for pennies on the dollar, trading 60 acres of guaranteed comfort for the brutal reality of a highly persecuted frontier religion. His first attempt at sanctuary in Kirtland, Ohio, collapsed quickly. Despite investing heavily in real estate, Andrew and his family were driven out by mob violence within 3 years. They fled to Illinois and entered a relentless survival loop. Andrew chopped winter cordwood while his 15-year-old son hauled it. They rented farmland from sympathetic locals and even built a commercial grist mill, only for a severe drought to completely dry up their water source. In 1844, the Mormon prophet Joseph Smith was murdered in cold blood. Realizing they were no longer safe within the United States, the congregation triggered a massive 1846 exodus from the city of Nauvoo. Pushing into Iowa, they stopped at a refugee camp called Mount Pisgah. Andrew's family hastily built a 1-room log cabin and broke virgin soil to plant corn, doing this specifically to feed the desperate waves of freezing migrants trailing behind them. When they reached winter quarters, the U.S. government demanded volunteers for the Mexican-American War. Adding to his sacrifices, Andrew gave up his teenage son Elijah to serve in the Mormon battalion. The weight of Andrew's resilience lived in the repetition, the constant, exhausting process of building a sanctuary from the dirt, only to have it seized, destroyed, or abandoned. By the spring of 1852, they were on the move again. Andrew and his family joined a massive train of 100 wagons, crawling across the continent for 2.5 grueling months. The daily reality of the trail was grim. They survived on hunted buffalo meat. At the Black Hills, the horses' hooves became battered, and at the Sweetwater River, cattle drank from toxic pools and dropped dead. The psychological blows hit just as hard. Arriving at Fort Bridger, the famous man Merchant Bridger bluntly warned them that the Salt Lake Valley was a frozen death trap, claiming the ground there froze every single month of the year. The most terrifying physical obstacle was the Green River. The water was running so high that drivers had to elevate their wagon beds by 6 inches. To navigate the deep quicksand, men waded into the current, tying one end of a rope to their waist and the other to an ox for safety. The safety loop held until the very last wagon reached the middle of the river. A swift current struck the broadside, violently ripping the final wagon box clean off its running gear and sending a lone woman plunging downstream. Another pioneer plunged his horse into the rapids and managed to pull the woman to safety, though all her supplies vanished downriver. It was a stark reminder of the razor-thin margin between life and death on the frontier. Andrew's family finally arrived in Utah in August of 1852. Reaching their destination offered no reprieve. The physical struggle simply took on a new form. They settled south in Provo, utterly destitute. While the men worked a sawmill to secure lumber, the younger children herded community cows. Their daily lunch consisted of rock-hard crusts of bread, soaked in river water just to make them soft enough to swallow. They also faced severe native conflicts. To protect the vulnerable settlements, Brigham Young ordered the immediate construction of regional defense forts. Building the Provo fort required heavy-duty engineering. They hauled massive 16-foot pine logs, each a foot in diameter, burying the butt ends 4 feet into the earth. The embedded logs were sharpened to deter climbers, tightly battened together to create an impenetrable wooden wall. Surviving the high desert required precision. Physical safety was a byproduct of advanced community engineering and strict defensive logistics. Andrew leveraged the construction of these walls to secure his family's future. He worked the fort exchange system, building sections of the perimeter until he earned a plot of land and a fully equipped wagon outfit for every single one of his sons. When Andrew Lee Allen died in 1870, he had completely rewritten his trajectory. He began life as a wandering orphan in Maine and ended it as a permanent foundational patriarch in Provo. The physical foundations of the West were engineered by families who viewed their collective survival as a spiritual mandate, turning a hostile landscape into a permanent home through sheer, unyielding repetition.